we're going to look at some basic photo corrections. We're going to work on this older image, which you can see has a crease here. It's kind of got a weird yellowy cast. And if you zoom in closely, you can see that there's some inconsistencies with the railing. There's this random dude in here that maybe we want to get rid of. So this is what we're working towards. And you can see, obviously, you got rid of the white border. The crease is gone. That random dude is gone. If you zoomed in closely, you could see where that guy was standing. Of course, if we remove him, all of these details are gone. So we're going to rebuild those as well. So starting here, the very first thing we're going to do is change the width to height ratio. So you're going to go clicking. Okay. So you're going to select the crop tool, and then you're going to notice in the tools panel you get these options. So make sure you have width to height resolution chosen here, and you want 7 inches by 7 inches and 200 pixels per inch. So I had to just type in literally 7 IN. Once you have that, then you'll see the crop grid has appeared here. So what we're first going to do here is straighten. So we're going to click this right here. Make sure that is the straighten tool. You're going to click once here, drag along to the top corner, click another time at the top. So that's showing this is where I want it to be straightened, and there you are, it's straightened. So Photoshop straightens the image so the line you draw is parallel with the top of the image area. So if I drew, because I drew this line across the top of the photo, it straightened it this way. But if it was a little bit wonky another way, like you wanted to straighten it vertically, you could have just done a line along the vertical axis as well. Now we're going to drag the corners of the crop window in, so we get rid of these ugly white borders, and there we go. Once it looks like what you want, you just press enter to accept it. Something up here it's not happy with. Okay, there we go. So it's straightened, and you'll notice down here that my status bar, if I click and hold here under document dimensions, this is what I get, and 17.78 centimeters is in fact the 7 inches that I specified up here. So it's retained the dimensions even though I've cropped it and straightened it. Okay, you're going to file and save your work. Okay. Then we're going to adjust the color tone here using a couple of adjustment panels, and these are all of your adjustments that you're allowed to do here. And you'll notice each time we add an adjustment, so the first one that we're going to add is a curves layer, it puts it in here as a separate layer so that it's non-destructive to the original image, and I'll illustrate what I mean by that in just a minute. So we're going to get rid of the weird color cast by specifying a white point. So we're going to select this right here, and then we're going to Command plus to zoom in on our image, and I want you to choose this spot right here in her dress. And so the white point that we just defined is pure white, and it adjusts all of the other colors accordingly. So we just set our white point by clicking on this, what should be white in her dress. And the color tone, you can see, has really changed. To illustrate this, Command minus to get rid of that. I'm just going to collapse this window. Here's what it used to look like, and here's what we just did. And the fact that I can click this off and on shows you that it's non-destructive to your background layer. So let's say I went and made all kinds of adjustments here, and I wasn't sure if I really wanted each of the adjustments. I could go through my list in the layers panel, click off, and if I don't like it, I can delete the layer. I don't want to do that, but I'm going to turn it back on, so this is what it should look like. Okay, so now we're going to adjust a little bit more because this is an old photo and it still needs a little bit more adjustments to the color. So we're going to go into the adjustments panel again, and we're going to click on this levels adjustment layer, and notice it added yet another layer here. So again, it's non-destructive to our original image. Now this is called a histogram. You can also see it on the back of your camera. This shows you the distribution of your shadows, midtones, and highlights, whether your photo's in black and white or in color. So we'll learn more about this as we go on. All you need to know right now is that right here represents your blacks, your midtones, and your highlights. And so what we're going to do is drag the left handle until it shows a value of 15, and we're going to drag the middle handle until it shows a value of 0.9. And you'll notice how this is changing our image. It's making the blacks more pronounced, and our midtones are also a little bit more pronounced. So again, turn this off and on. You can see it's given the photo a little bit more punch. So now we've adjusted this color. We're going to flatten the image so that we don't need to work on this anymore. And it's going to merge, if we flatten the image, it's going to merge all of these layers, which will reduce the file size, and we'll still be able to make changes to this image going forward. But once we flatten this image, we're no longer going to have the flexibility to edit these particular adjustment layers. So if you're working and you might want to come back and make small adjustments here, like if I wanted to adjust this again, I would just double click that icon and it pops back up again, and I could change my whites a little bit if I wanted. So if you may want to come back to these, do not flatten the image, but just for sake of showing you how to do this, layer flatten image should be down here. Okay, and then notice it collapses all of my layers into one layer. Then I'd like you to file save yet again. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is use the spot healing brush to remove this crease. So you can remove blemishes in old photos or in skin or whatever it is that needs repairing. So the spot healing brush samples pixels around the retouched area and matches the texture, lighting, transparency, shading of the sampled pixels to the pixels being healed. So we're going to Command plus to zoom in. Hold down the space bar so your tool turns into the hand and you can pan around your image. Okay, and we're going to work on this a little bit at a time. It might take 4 or 5 strokes with the spot healing brush. Okay, you're going to choose the spot healing brush. It's under the patch tool for me. Well, this is what shows, but if you click and hold, you can find the patch tool, which we'll use later on in this lesson. In the options bar, you're going to go and specify a brush that's 25 pixels in diameter and 100% hardness, and then press escape to get rid of that. Okay, you're going to notice as you drag, this turns black, and then a real cool thing happens when you let go. It's magically healed the area. So just pan through your image. What's really cool is, yes, okay, it's amazing that it's doing this in the blue area, but let's check out how it deals with the detail below. It's really cool. And just like that, we can fix the crease. Okay. So as you noticed, it first changed black, but then when you let go, it fixed it. So now we're going to get rid of this random dude again, right here. Click and hold, choose the patch tool, and make sure that content aware is selected here under patch in the options bar. And we're going to make sure that structure says 4. Okay, the structure menu determines how closely the patch reflects the existing area or the existing image patterns. So you can choose from 1 to 7, where 1 allows the loosest adherence to the source structure and 7 requires the strictest. So you're going to draw a patch around the boy as closely as possible. You're probably going to have to zoom in, Command plus, or choose the zoom tool in the tools panel. Now I'm a left-handed person and I have to use my right hand, so forgive me. Include the shadow in your selection. Oh, accidentally hit the edge. I'm just going to go fast here, but I would like you to make sure that your selection is as precise as possible, close to this guy, but not cutting into his likeness. Okay, once you come back around, mine's terrible here, but once you come back around, now you see these marching ants, which indicates that this is selected. And then you're going to grab this and drag it so that it's as far to, and you want to align, notice that I guess the bridge or the boardwalk behind, try and get it so that's straight. You want to make sure that you drag it to the left, but you don't go into where that woman and her child are. So let go and magically Command D to deselect, and this is what you're left with. It's a little bit wonky in some of these areas, so we're going to fix this and we're going to rebuild these windows. Okay, Clone Stamp tool now is yet another way that you can make some repairs here. So the Clone Stamp tool uses pixels from one area of an image to replace the pixels in another part of the image. So you can not only remove unwanted objects from your images, but you can also fill in missing areas of the photographs that are maybe damaged from scanned originals. So the clone stamp we're going to use here to smooth out some of the irregularities in the height of the bridge wall and the windows on the building. So choose the clone stamp right here, and again, if you hover over it, will show you what it is. And if you hover over it, you can also see the tool or the keyboard shortcut is S. In the tools panel, select a 60 pixel brush for size and a 30% hardness. I guess I had that roughly. Make sure that aligned is checked off up here. And you're going to move the clone stamp to an area where the top of the bridge wall is smooth, like here, for example. And we're going to hold down Alt, and you'll notice that your cursor turns into a crosshairs. That's what you do to sample. And then you can see here, when you start lying your sampled area over top, it gives you a preview. Now, if you click and drag, you can also get it like that. Now we're going to repair this little section too. So I need to take another sampling. You can see if you do this, it's starting to sample from the pixels around it. So each time you click the clone stamp tool, it begins again with a new source point in the same relationship to the tool as the first stroke you made. That is, if you begin painting further to the right, or in this case I'm painting further to the left, it's sampling from other areas of the photo, and that's because aligned is selected. And obviously I don't want to paint this woman's dress into areas where she is not. So I'm going to hold down Option, take another sample, and here I'm just going to try and repair this so it doesn't look like an obvious weird, okay? It's not perfect, but up here certainly hides a lot. We could go on and sample, you know, this to fill in the cracks here and make this look like it's all the same row if you wanted. You could really go nuts here, but just for the sake of getting this done and demonstrating, I'm going to do this quickly. Okay, so maybe down here we need to fix it as well. So Option, take a sample. I mean, look, this is so cool. We just removed this guy and now you'd never really know it. So the bridge looks great. Now what we're going to do is actually build in some more of these windows up here. So what you need to do is choose a smaller brush size. Let's go up here. Just choose this. Let's reduce this maybe by half. And we're going to deselect aligned. And then we're going to select a source point over the rightmost window. So again, hold down Option, take your sample and you can paint in, this is so cool, you want to paint in about, I guess you want a total of about 6 windows. So I'm going to also just extend these a little bit, and then I'll take a sample of the top of the windows where these canopy, or yeah, I guess canopy things are. Sample. There we are. I mean, honestly, this looks just so close to the original. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do here is sharpen the image. So you might want to do this when you're retouching a photo. There's several ways to do this, but the Smart Sharpen filter gives you the most control. So we're going to zoom in to about 400%, keeping an eye on the status bar down here. That will tell us where we're at. So there we are, Command plus twice, and I got to 400%. I'm going to hold down the space bar. You can see all these weird colored dots. That's the dust from the original image. This would have been done on film. You can really see them in the guy's shirt. And you can see I still have clone stamp selected here. So we're going to choose filter, noise, dust and scratches. And in the dust and scratches dialog box, leave the default setting with a radius of 1 pixel and a threshold of 0 and click OK. And the threshold value determines how dissimilar the pixels should be before they're eliminated. And the radius value determines the size of the area searched for dissimilar pixels. The default values are great for tiny little dots of colors like the one on this image that we really saw on his shirt. We also saw it to the the right of the woman. So these little dust spots were called artifacts, and now that these artifacts are gone, we're going to sharpen the image. So we're going to choose again filter, sharpen, and then Smart Sharpen. And in this dialog box, make sure your preview is checked off up there so you can see the effect of the settings you adjust as you do this. I'm just going to grab this and drag it over so we can see what we're doing. So you can choose to remove lens blur, Gaussian blur, or motion blur. So lens blur provides finer sharpening of detail and reduce sharpening halos. It just makes these edges sharper because of course this is film and it's grainier than what we want it to be. Gaussian blur, so Gaussian blur so this is lens blur. Gaussian blur increases the contrast along the edges of an image, and motion blur reduces the effects of blur that result from the camera or the subject moving when the photo was taken. So let's say you had a shutter speed that was too slow to be hand holding the camera and you took the photo anyways. You could help reduce some of the motion blur using this function. So what we're going to do is make sure lens blur is selected. Drag the amount slider to about 60%, so I've already done that. Drag the radius slider to 1.5. The radius value determines the number of pixels surrounding the edge pixels that affect the sharpening. So the higher the resolution, the higher the radius setting should be. The higher the resolution your image, the higher the radius setting should be. When you're finished, click OK. And you will notice if we go back to our history panel, we can go here, and this is what it looked like. Okay, so there is what it looked like before we did dust and scratches. Then we fixed the dust and scratches. Then we sharpened the image. And maybe it's a little bit harder to see zoomed in like this, but it did make a difference. Okay, so those are some basic photo corrections that you can make to your alphabet assignment photos. Making sure that the images are straight, they are cropped in so that the letter fills the frame and is clearly emphasized. Any unwanted subjects in your photo, like that boy that was here, can be removed. If you remove anything, of course, you can use the clone stamp to replace some of the details. And yeah, so make a lot of improvements to your alphabet assignment photos so that when you put them into a contact sheet, each of the letters are clearly emphasized and the photos are compositions that stand well on their own, keeping in mind the rules of composition that we spoke about at the beginning of the course. Good luck!